Once upon a time, not in some alternate timeline, but in our very own universe, the Marvel Cinematic Universe was the crown jewel of blockbuster storytelling. For over a decade, it brought together geniuses, soldiers, spies, aliens, and sorcerers into a shared world where every story built on to last. We laughed, we cried, we cheered. It was a cinematic miracle, a once-in-a-generation achievement that made superhero movies feel like high art and epic myth at the same time. Then came Avengers Endgame, a grand finale. Heroes lived, heroes died, sacrifices were made, the saga felt complete. And fans, though heartbroken, were satisfied. It was the end of a beautiful arc, but not the end of the MCU. In fact, it was just the beginning of something new, something bigger, something more complicated, something called the multiverse. Let's keep it simple. The multiverse is the idea that there are many versions of the universe. Infinite Earths, infinite timelines, infinite versions of every character. There's a timeline where Tony Stark's a dog, a universe where Steve Rogers became Spider-Man, a reality where Loki is an alligator. In concept, it's kind of fun. The idea that anything can happen, that you can bring back characters, twist familiar stories, remix the past, that's like candy for the comic book fans. But just like eating too much candy, too much multiverse made the MCU sick. Let's start with the biggest issue, death. In stories, death matters because it creates weight. It tells the audience, this was important, this cost something. Think back to when Tony Stark died in Endgame. That moment landed like a punch to the heart. Why? Because it was final. Because we believed it was the end of his story. But now, with the multiverse, there's always another Tony Stark. Somewhere out there is a variant who never became Iron Man. Or one who did but made different choices. Or one who's still alive and still waiting to be brought in. So when someone dies in the multiverse era, it doesn't feel like the end. It feels like a temporary inconvenience. That emotional punch becomes a polite tap on the shoulder, and once audiences start to believe that death doesn't stick, they stop caring. Great storytelling is about change. A character starts one way, faces challenges, and grows. That was the magic of the original MCU. We saw Tony Stark go from a selfish billionaire to the guy who laid down his life for the universe. We saw Steve Rogers wrestle with time, loyalty, and identity. But now, with variants and alternate versions everywhere, there's no single journey to follow. You meet one version of a character, then another, and none of them really grow because they didn't stay long enough for us to even care. A good story is like a road trip. You need to be in the same car with the same people for a while. The multiverse turned that car into a revolving door. Imagine trying to explain the current MCU to someone who only saw Endgame. You'd probably say something like, okay, so there's this secret agency that prunes timelines, and Loki met a bunch of other Lokis, including a crocodile, and then there's a guy named Kang, who was actually lots of different guys named Kang, and he's kind of the next big bad villain, but also maybe not because he might be replaced with a new big bad named Doom. But also everything just might get rebooted anyway. Sounds messy. That's because it is. The MCU used to be a relatively easy to follow. Now it feels like trying to do calculus with a hangover, and when people have to work that hard just to understand what's going on, they tune out. Every good story has rules. Not just laws of physics, but emotional rules. If someone makes a heroic sacrifice, it means something. If someone betrays a friend, there are consequences. But in the multiverse, rules bend. They shatter. Cause and effect gets murky. Timelines can be pruned or changed or ignored. A villain who dies can return. A hero who retires can come back. So what are the rules now? That uncertainty isn't exciting, it's exhausting. If there are no rules, there are no consequences. If there are no consequences, there's no drama. And if there's no drama, what's the point? Let's be honest. When Marvel teased the multiverse, people were hyped. Spider-Man No Way Home brought back Tobey Maguire and Andrew Garfield. It was pure joy for fans who grew up on their movies. For one glorious moment, the multiverse felt like magic. But then Marvel kept doing it, over and over. Instead of telling new, powerful stories, Marvel got caught in the nostalgia trap, banking on emotional callbacks instead of creating new emotion. And eventually, audiences caught on. The multiverse became a gimmick, not a gift. Endgame was supposed to be the ending. It was called Endgame for a reason. It was Marvel's Return of the King, its possible big goodbye. But the multiverse made that goodbye feel cheap. Thanos came back in What If, and other timelines. Steve Rogers' sacrifice gets blurred by all the timelines. Loki, who died heroically in Infinity War, is back and starring in a time-traveling buddy comedy. With the multiverse came too much. Too many shows, too many movies, too many timelines, characters, variants, cameos. There was a time when a new Marvel movie felt like an event. Now, it feels like homework. Fans struggle to keep up. Even diehards are overwhelmed. The multiverse allowed Marvel to expand infinitely. But infinite doesn't mean better. It often means bloated. The focus shifted from crafting a good story to creating a big one. But when everything is big, nothing feels special. The early MCU worked because it was about people. Sure, they had power, but they were human. Tony Stark struggled with anxiety. Steve Rogers felt out of place. Natasha Romanoff wanted redemption. T'Challa mourned his father while trying to lead a nation. These were real emotions grounded in a fictional world. But now, the multiverse turned characters into concepts. Instead of who they are, it's how many of them there are. Instead of their fears and dreams, we talk about their timeline branch and canon events. Marvel became more about plot mechanics than people. So can the MCU be saved? Maybe, but it won't be easy. To save the MCU, Marvel needs to stop chasing infinite and start embracing intimate. It needs to return to character-driven storytelling. One universe, one story, one heart. Use the multiverse sparingly. Focus on stakes that matter, deaths that stick, and characters who grow. Build slow again. Make fans care before asking them to cheer. People don't come to Marvel for the timelines. They come for the heroes, for sacrifice, for emotion. Because in the end, the multiverse didn't just kill the MCU with confusion or quantity. It killed it by forgetting the most important thing: why we fell in love with these stories in the first place.